Hello, and welcome to my second video on how to play the baritone. Today's lesson objectives are as follows: learning one new scale for warming up, understanding why warming up is necessary, and learning a simple, uncopyrighted song that could also be used for warming up. Now, the first lesson objective, learning a scale, will be the B-flat concert scale, which is the scale traditionally used in most big band settings for warming up. It's a very common scale. A scale is a series of notes that spans one octave, or from low B-flat to middle B-flat, with low and middle referring to pitch. Before teaching this scale, I'm going to establish the numbers of the baritone valves. This will make learning the scales easier, as I will tell you which number valve to push down for each note. The valve closest to your body is valve 1, this one right here. The second valve in the middle of the baritone is valve number 2, and the third valve, the one farthest from you, is valve number 3. Now, before I teach you each individual note of the B-flat scale, I will be playing the whole thing in its entirety so you know what it's supposed to sound like fluidly. That's the B-flat scale, all run together going up the scale. Next, for the first note of the scale, it is played with no fingers putting down any valves. The valves are all open. However, to make a quick transition from this note to the next note, you'll want to position your fingers above the valves. Like we talked about, don't slant them, but have them all straight up and down. This first note sounds like this. Next, the second note is fingers with 1 and 2, or valves 1 and 3 are down, and valve 2 is still up. This sounds like this. Next, valve 3 gets to come back up, and valve 2 is put down along with valve 1, valve 1, which stays down. This note sounds like this. Next, valve 1 should remain down, and valve 2 should come back up. Next, just like in the beginning, all valves should not be down, but your fingers should still be positioned. Next, valves 1 and 2 should go down again. Next, this one is one that we haven't experienced yet. Only valve 2 should be down, and valves 1 and 3 should be up. Finally, much like at the beginning of the scale, no valves are down, but your fingers are still positioned. This note, this final note on the scale, is 1 octave higher than the note that we began on. Because of this, the fingering is the same, although this isn't always the case. As you get better at playing your instrument and going up and down the scale, it'll become faster and easier for you. Much like I was in the beginning, able to play all these notes fluidly, you will one day be able to as well. However, don't be discouraged if your first few scales are disjointed, or it's difficult for you to go all the way up the scale. These scales are for warming up your lips before you play more difficult pieces, as well as for expanding your range. If you haven't quite hit the final note yet, that's okay. But by doing a scale, it will help you to eventually get there. Warming up is important before playing instruments. This is because, much like any other part of your body that performs an action, lips have muscles in them. Much like if you attempt to do a difficult sports action without warming up, you will find that you will be more tired sooner than if you had warmed up. For example, if you were to go on a run, not warming up beforehand would mean that your muscles would build up lactic acid and become tired more quickly. Unlike doing sports, however, you can't hurt yourself if you don't warm up before playing your instrument. However, you might not be able to have as long of a practice session because your lips are too tired to hit the notes. which is something that can happen. If you overuse your lips, they'll become tired, much like any other muscle, and you might have to cut short your practice for that day. Because of this, warming up first is important, as it helps to lengthen the amount of practice you can have, and it also helps you to hit higher notes while practicing, which adds more value to your practice time. Next, as promised, I'll be teaching you a short, uncopyrighted song which you can also use for practicing, as well as warming up. This song is Hot Cross Buns, which can be found in sheet music form online. I'll be playing this song first, with fluidity in its entirety, before teaching the individual notes. As you can see, it's not very difficult. It's a short song, and a lot of the notes are repetitive. In fact, it only uses 3 notes. First, the first note of this song is played with 1 and 2 down, the valve closest to you and the one in the middle. Next, no valves should be pressed down, but your fingers should still be in position. Finally, the first valve of your instrument should be pressed down. This pattern repeats again. Next, the first valve should be put down, and you should tongue 4 notes. If you remember, tonguing is when you stop the air going through your instrument and then start it again to play a note. For example, did you see how the air stopped in between each note? There was no sound coming out of the instrument. With a little bit of practice, you can do this too. Just stop the air going through your mouth, and then you'll be able to tongue a note. Next, the valves should be up again with none of them down and your fingers in position, and you should tongue 4 notes again. Finally, the pattern from the beginning is repeated, and 2 fingers, valves 1 and 2 down, no valves down, and 1 valve is repeated again. With a little bit of practice, you should be able to run these notes together and play the song fluidly, as I did in the beginning. Use my first example of the song to help you as you try to play this song faster and faster. As you practice, it should become easier. Thank you for watching my second video. My next video will be on the history and background of the baritone. Lesson objectives for my next video will include learning the beginnings of the baritone, learning who invented it and where it was invented, and also a variety of fun facts related to the baritone. Thank you, and I hope to see you again.